All right, we have a lot more to go through here. Before we move on, I want to just go in depth a little bit on the Intercontinental title match because we kind of rushed it a little bit. Much like the United States title, there's a potential of these titles switching brands. As Zack Ryder is on Raw, no, excuse me, Zack Ryder is on SmackDown, Rusev on Raw, Miz is on SmackDown, uh, Darren Young is on Raw. So there's a potential the U.S. title and the Intercontinental title switching brands. It would be interesting to see that happen, but with Ryder, I don't think it'll happen. So the best chance of this title switching hand is Darren Young beating The Miz. The Miz has held it for a long time now. He has held it past the movie, which is pretty much the length of his title reigns. Really, once he has a movie, he drops it, or after the movie, he drops it. I don't think I don't know if it'll happen. When I personally spoke to Mr. Backlund about what he was doing at the Hall of Fame, because when I went to the Hall of Fame, Mr. Backlund was getting people to sign papers for some kind of podcast. I believe it was like some kind of email system, so you could say, "Oh, we're doing this with the podcast," or "Hey, it's the newest episode of the podcast," or whatever. Well, I haven't heard anything about that podcast since. However, Mr. Backlund has been trying to make Darren Young great again. We talked about on the last part somewhat of a Donald Trump kind of thing. It was very awkward at first, but Backlund was the main reason it was successful. The main reason it was relevant. The main reason that it was even a thing because of Mr. Bob Backlund, and I have a lot of respect for Mr. Backlund. But it's weird to me. It's weird that this is what you need to make Darren Young great again. He was never great to begin with, to be honest. But now he's starting the. I mean, last night we saw him use a chicken wing, the CrossFit chicken wing. Excuse me, hard to say that 5 times fast. But a move that Mr. Backlund has won world titles on, has won multiple titles on. Was even a People's Champion at one point. Even though those were cardboard fan-made belts, but it was still a People's Championship in a way. Um, but with that being said, there was a big chance the Intercontinental title could change hands here. And, much with Rusev having Lana interfere to retain the title would be one way to do it, that gets negated. Because you have a man with experience like Mr. Bob Backlund. You have a man who is a former world champion in your corner. A man who has almost done it all in this business. And it would make sense for his protege to win the Intercontinental Championship. Next up, we have Becky Lynch and Natalya. And as if I am not mistaken, both of them are on SmackDown, so this feud will continue regardless. With that being said, though, it's interesting. Uh, Natalya attacked Becky Lynch at the last pay-per-view, and that was a thing, and it was interesting to say the least. But I believe this is how Becky gets one of her wins back. Becky gets a huge win and just moves on from this. However, not moving on are Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, as they are both on Raw, so they will indeed fight forever. And Destiny does have a weird thing, as Sammy said. Destiny has a cruel take on things sometimes because they are both on the same brand. This was honestly marketed as possibly the last time they would be fighting, but they are both on Raw now, so they will indeed fight forever. As far as that goes, I feel that Sammy gets a win, just so he can move on from this feud and just do something else. But knowing Kevin Owens, that will not be the case. And a match, again, that is split up by the draft. This will be the only time these men will be teaming together as far as I know. As John Cena is on SmackDown. He will team up with Raw's Enzo Amore and Big Cass. As SmackDown's AJ Styles will team up with Raw's members of the club, Anderson and Gallows. Almost said Allison and Gallows, but whatever. Anderson and Gallows. And it's interesting because, these teams could have been split up. With the rules of the draft, You could have had one member of the team be a part of a roster here. You could have had them all split up, but I don't think that'll happen here. For at least for now, especially with the club, you could always expand the club. Especially since Finn Balor is on Raw, so you could expand the club that way a little bit. It'll be interesting to see what happens from here, but I feel like John Cena beats AJ Styles because, let's face it, AJ beat him last month. AJ beat him what could be considered a minor upset in WWE at least. But I feel like that the club and Enzo and Cass somehow get out of the match. They fight, they brawl to the back or something, and it's down to Cena and AJ, and then Cena wins, and they could potentially have a cross-branded SummerSlam match or something like that. And finally, the WWE Championship is on the line as Raw's returning Roman Reigns faces Raw's Seth Rollins and SmackDown's champion Dean Ambrose. And it'll be interesting to see what happens here. Dean Ambrose won the belt at Money in the Bank, cashed in the Money in the Bank briefcase, and we have this match. With that being said, though, it's interesting to see what happens from here. I mean, as far as we know, there are no kickoff matches on this show, at least. But that could probably change. We don't know for sure. But there's a potential of this title going to Raw. I doubt it, but there's a potential of these titles going to Raw and the world title being brought back on SmackDown or something. We don't know. But with that being said, if anything, Ambrose retains the belt, and then you bring a Raw title, you bring like the world title, put it on Raw or something, because it feels too soon to take the belt off of Ambrose. He literally just won it the last pay-per-view. I would not be surprised if they put it on Roman, because honestly, the main reason Ambrose has the belt because Roman was suspended for some kind of violation. We don't know exactly what that was. I don't think we still know what it was. It could have been something minor, could have been something big. But with that being said, Ambrose should retain. It makes sense. He retained it on SmackDown. He retained it on Raw. That way you have SmackDown going in the future with the title, which would be huge for SmackDown. With that, BattleGround is a Sunday. We don't know what's going to happen. I mean, there's still people that could be drafted. We don't know for sure. Hopefully everything works out in the end.